What inspired you to get involved with Countdown to Zero?
Having produced An Inconvenient Truth, I got to see firsthand how a movie was able to educate and inspire a movement around the issue of climate change. And then when the movie was finished and out, I was getting a lot of phone calls from people who wanted to make the inconvenient truth of different issues. And two things happened. One, I got a phone call from these guys from Global Zero Group. They're the exec producer on the movie, Bruce Blair and Matt Brown. And they said they wanted to make the inconvenient truth of nuclear weapons. And I thought, okay, I need to sit back and think about that. And right around the same time, I was with Jeff Skull, who financed An Inconvenient Truth and who financed Countdown to Zero. And we were with Al Gore when he was receiving his Nobel Peace Prize. That was a big moment for me. We were walking around the streets one day, on this very cold day, and we were talking about what else could destroy life on a planetary basis. Very light conversation. And anyway, it was the nuclear threat. So the three of us, these three groups, we teamed up and decided that this issue needed to be raised up to the top of the political agenda, and we wanted to create a movie to help do that.
Do you think people are less concerned about nuclear weapons today than they were during the Cold War, and if so, why? It seems like a more dangerous situation today.
People are definitely less concerned about nuclear weapons today. During the Cold War, there was this continued escalation of the production of nuclear weapons between the then USSR and us. At the height of the Cold War, there were 70,000 nuclear weapons in the world. Now today there are only 23. That's still plenty to destroy the world many times over. So now that the Cold War, it feels like ancient history to most people. As a matter of fact, if you're in college today, you're born after the Berlin Wall came down. So the thought of anything about the Cold War really feels like ancient history. So most people don't think about this issue of nuclear weapons. However, as you started to point out, that we're in a much more risky and actually terrifying situation now than we were during the Cold War.
In Countdown to Zero, you interview a lot of heads of state and former heads of state. How did you get them on board, and what was their reaction to this issue?
We interviewed a lot of really interesting people. Everyone from Tony Blair to President Musharraf, President Carter, President Gorbachev, President de Klerk from South Africa. We wanted to interview those people because none of us can possibly have any idea what it would mean to be the head of a nation that controls these weapons of mass destruction, and being the ultimate person at the end of the day, that if there's some kind of nuclear issue, that you are the final say as to whether to push that button or not. It was hard to get on their agenda to film them just because they are who they are. And usually, like Gorbachev, who said yes the second we met him, then it took a year and a half to actually get the interview. And President Musharraf, we were trying to get while he was in Pakistan. We couldn't. Some crazy things happened. He got ousted. The hotel we were supposed to stay in that day blew up. Nobody just wants to say, hey, yeah, I'd love to talk about nuclear weapons and tell you everything I know about it. It's a very dense subject, and people who are in the know, there's a lot they can't say. So it took a lot of effort to get people to talk about what they're allowed to talk about, and make the interviews and distill the interviews and the movie into something that's sort of entertaining, easily digestible.
How sympathetic were they to the idea of global disarmament? Does it seem like something that could be accomplished to them, or does it seem like a fanciful, impossible goal?
Well, what's interesting about disarmament, and we talk a lot about this in the movie, is that the great liberal president Ronald Reagan was his dream. Mm-hmm. And we have a wonderful speech from him about his dream to eliminate nuclear weapons from the face of the earth. It's a beautiful speech. It actually started with Nixon when he wanted to reduce nuclear weapons. And it's an idea, I believe, whose time has come. There are a lot of people who have changed the way they think about nuclear weapons because we're not in this Cold War anymore. We're now post 9/11, where the real risk is a terrorist getting their hands on a nuclear weapon, proliferation. The incident that happened in Times Square just a month and a half ago or so could have been a nuclear weapon. It was some firecracks and some propane. It could have killed a bunch of people, but it could have been even had a greater devastational effect if that was obviously a nuclear bomb. So terrorism is the main threat. And for one big thing, mutually assured destruction between the United States and Russia. We always didn't attack, at least because we knew they would attack us, and we would basically destroy ourselves. Obviously, terrorists are not really worried about retaliation.
How do you think Countdown to Zero will raise global awareness about nuclear weapons?
It's our hope that this movie raises awareness. We've been on a lot of shows, news shows, talking about the issue now. We had a screening at the United Nations. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Michael Douglas hosted us. It was just a wonderful event there. Senator Kerry in D.C. hosted an event. We're screening it for people all over the world. I just got back from Kazakhstan where I screened the movie. I was in India. We've been invited to different parliaments to screen the movie. This movie is a wake-up call. And then it's just like an edge-of-your-seat kind of thriller. And we are hoping that people wake up to this issue so that it rises up to the top of the agenda. We have President Reagan, Secretary James Baker, we have Rick Burt, who was the chief arms negotiator for the START Treaty, START 1, an advisor to Senator McCain. So this is an idea who is not a liberal idea or a Republican idea, a conservative idea, but it's an idea who sort of crosses both parties. And that's why I'm so excited about this.